Estamos aqui hoje para mais um Poder Equestre. Hoje, mais uma edição especial da nossa Mesa Eqstr, primeira mesa internacional do Poder Equestre. Eu não poderia estar aqui mais bem acompanhado. Estou aqui junto comigo com o Fernando Dal Sasso, que vai me ajudar a introduzir essa turminha aqui. Eu estou aqui com o Bernhard, que ele é... Breeding Advisor do Paul Schockemöhle. Estou aqui com o Frederik, que ele é apresentador do Global Champions Tour. Para quem assiste, já ouviu a voz dele. Além de ser locutor de vários outros leilões. O Frederik, também leiloeiro internacional.
Não, Frederik.
Gente, calma. You two look alike, sorry.
Yeah.
You two look alike.
That's hard, Frederik, sorry.
Is it a compliment or is it
siblings, you two like are a lot together, so you
He's the cute one, I'm the nice one.
Yeah. Now I understand why it worked yesterday evening.
People thought you were
She's writing a love letter to Frederik De Backer. That's Fernando, it's me, you know, in case you mix us up.
E nós temos por último o Florian, que ele é CEO do Paul Schockemöhle, então eu não podia estar mais bem acompanhado. Hello guys, please introduce yourselves. Let's go from here to there. I think it's easier.
You start, Frederik.
I will start. My name is Bernhard Thoben. I'm from the Paul Schockemöhle stable. I'm there working as a sales manager. Also going to the Levitz to see the young horses. And what a big opportunity to be here, to be part of the auction with Fernando together.
Hello, my name is Florian Meyer. I'm the CEO of the Paul Schockemöhle companies. I'm involved in the breeding program. I'm very much in it to select the stallions, to see the mares, and it's nice to be here.
Eu sou o Fernando Cruz, ou Dal Sasso, sou um organizador do World Breeders Brasil, junto com esse time de sucesso. Sou o único brasileiro aqui, o único normal entre nós. E sou veterinário também, e nada tão grandioso como esses caras aqui do lado.
I'm Frederik De Backer. I'm from Belgium. I'm an auctioneer and a show jumping or horse sport commentator.
Nice. So, I want to hear from Florian and Bernhard, please. How did you think that Paul Schockemöhle changed the horse world scenario? This is a hard one.
That's a hard question. Hard question to the for the beginning. Actually, he's in the sport since a long time. The family is well known. His brother was already Olympic champion in 1964, I think, and he was already as a groom traveling to this Olympics. And since then, has been to every Olympic. So he has made all the changes from the sport till now. And he was always interested. He was always somebody who wants to do something, wants to move something, and made up his mind. And that's also when he started to think about how to get a good horse or the perfect horse. And he was one of the first one who would buy older mares which are not in the sport anymore and start breeding. A lot of our breeding lines goes back to these mares. We were looking yesterday night a little bit like some of our mares that we call it's the mare family from Grazie, for example. The main mare, why he has this line, was born in the 50s. So I think that's what made him also so unique and also so important. And with all his success that he had, for sure he had a big influence on the whole riding world. Also because he was riding, he was breeding, he was making shows. So he making auctions. So he did everything what you can do in our business. He did, and he was always moving forward. And I think that changed a lot.
You have to think about it. That's 60, almost 70 years of being invested in the sport. I mean, we all have ambition and we have ideas and we have plans. But to execute them over 70 years and execute them successfully, because that's still a big difference. That's experience, and that's depth of knowledge and experience. It's also depth of failure, knowing what doesn't work, because that's probably even the most important thing.
I have been here for only 30, so I'll have
and you look 20, so that's good.
Oh, there he is again.
Hey.
So you want to compliment something?
Yeah, it's great just to see it and to get this opportunity to work with him together with the whole team, because it's really really sport people. There are a lot of road really at the top level, and this feeling for a horse, the knowledge for a horse, and then if you can make a combination with the sport and the breeding, like it is in Paul's place, with the mares, and so interesting. If you just can talk, or if it's Paul or if it's Florian, just a lot of times they know the mares, they know how the grandmother was in the ring, why they choose which stallion. If you see our breeding station, a lot of stallions are bred by ourselves, and we know everything about them. We know the mare lines as well, and this whole package makes it so safe for the clients as well, and that's why we want to go on to produce this high quality standard, and this is for a client really important as well, and gives them a lot of safety to buy a horse from Paul.
O que eu acho muito legal quando a gente fala do Paul Schockemöhle, agora uma visão nossa de brasileiro, né? É um sonho, né? Conhecer um cara desse. Um cara realmente é um horseman, é um cara que veio lá de baixo e veio subindo como cavaleiro, como criador, idealizador de grandes coisas, né? Grandes eventos, e como o próprio Frederik falou, por muito tempo. Então, acho que isso o torna muito grande, além é claro, de ter uma equipe muito capacitada. Então a gente hoje não é só mais o Paul Schockemöhle, é toda uma equipe que está ali selecionando, treinando, né, onde eles realmente vivem isso, né? É uma cultura muito diferente na nossa brasileira. Todos aqui eles são profissionais do cavalo e vivem muito bem só fazendo isso, não só, né, mas fazendo isso, né? Então isso que é muito legal, é algo muito mais profissional, né? Lá eles têm mais de 350 funcionários vivendo exclusivamente dos cavalos e sempre desenvolvendo, sempre tentando algo melhor. Eu acho que é por isso que é uma grande companhia, né? Não somente uma pessoa, né? E é claro, idealizado por esse cara que não para um minuto, né? Eles têm 2 fazendas de 300 quilômetros de diferença uma da outra, e toda semana I'm saying that Paul drive every week 300 kilometers to see the horses in the other farm. Eu acho que isso é super legal. Então é um cara que aos 80 anos ainda é o coração daquilo, e faz com que isso aconteça.
Com certeza. Eu queria saber agora como vocês acham que o cavalo de esporte anda junto com a genética?
Inglês.
Yes, I will speak in English also. So, how do you guys see that the sport horses walk along with the genetic evolution? Sorry, only hard questions today. I'm sorry.
No, it's good question. We just talked about it a little bit.
In general, the sport horse since the 70s or whatever has changed just from this ability, and the genetics has moved on. And for sure, the horses got more light. The whole sport got quicker, and also stronger for the horses. In former times, there was a winter break for 2-3 months. Now it's a whole year, so you really have to manage your horse. But also the horses, they travel a lot, and it's, for me, it's always unbelievable to see what these top horses, what they can deliver, what they do every week. And I think then we talk about genetics, we talk about constitution. That's all very important. But in the end, the most important is the mind of the horse. If the horse has the mind, it doesn't matter if there are some problems in the constitution or some problems here or problems there. If they have the mind, it's, I think, the most important thing. And the mind is born and the mind is made by the good management. So it's a combination of both. And especially when you see in our breeding, Paul always liked horses which he felt they want to go. And he said, one time he told me that Chaco Blue, when he started with him, there were also a lot of things that maybe was not perfect on him, for sure. But he said from the first day when he saw the offsprings jump, he thought they have the unbelievable mind. And that's what makes Chaco so great. And also he gives it to his offsprings and they give it also further. So that's very unique. He always said, like, when you asked Chaco Blue to jump this house, he knew he couldn't do it, but he would try. And that's what made him so convinced that this is the horse he has to have very strong in his breeding.
It's interesting that we all breed for the sport, but it's a sport that follows the breeding. It's because horses developed and breeders developed and horses got lighter and lighter that the sport had to follow. It's not the other way around. It's not the sport that dictates the breeding. It's because horses get better that the sport needs to get tougher and needs to get lighter, because otherwise all horses would go clear and everybody could be a winner. So the sport has to follow the breeding. This is also very interesting perspective also for a breeder, that you have to follow the sport to also understand your breeding and what your plan is for the future. It's a very interesting dynamic between sport and breeding.
Let's go. You.
Yeah, we have to see what kind of clients coming up now, that a lot of women, young girls are riding. They need another type of horse like it was years before. So it's not that easy just to say, okay, now I use another stallion and I will breed another type of horse. It takes a long time, and it's not so easy to change the whole genetic. So that was Frederik said. We have the horse and the way of riding, the way of management, and then the sport has to fix.
Eu queria, na verdade, fazer uma pergunta para eles, principalmente acho que para o Florian. Eu fico imaginando ele, eu não me lembro se ele montou o Schockemöhle, mas eu sei que ele montou o Chacun e provavelmente tenha montado filhos do Chacun, como o Chalobino. Eu acho que a gente podia perguntar para ele, já que a gente está falando de evolução, o que ele sente de diferença nesses cavalos que ele montou, né?
Pode perguntar, porque a minha próxima pergunta é sobre morfologia.
Did you, I don't remember if you rode sometimes Chaco or not, and what difference you see between the generations, like Chaco, now you rode Chacun, and for sure Chalobino or others, so we saw this.
Actually, I never rode Chaco Blue, but okay, I saw him every day. And first of all, from the type-wise, if you see, for example, Chacun and Chalobino are much lighter types. They are lighter to ride, easier to ride. What Bernhard just mentioned, that our clients mostly now are women, girls, and we have to produce for a sport which is quick. And when you see just the courses, in former times you had Oxers, there was like 15 rails in, and now with 15 rails you can build the whole global Grand Prix, So it's also the horses has to be quicker, smarter, and easier to ride. Chaco was himself, he was a bit strong. He was quite a wide horse, not tall, but wide enough. So the offsprings, like Chacun, they're lighter, easier, they're very good to ride. But they got this mentality, the smartness and everything from Chaco. But this is what I said, this is development. And what's interesting to say, if you see Chacun's mother line, it goes back to the full sister of Ascan, who was winning the Olympics 72. And was maybe Paul, he said, his first best horse, or maybe the best horse ever. And he already said there, he had to buy the full sister to get going with this mare, because he said, this horse at that time was ahead of the sport. He was so careful. He had such a great technique. And at that time, it was on the edge, because the jumps were solid, heavy. The ground was not so good. So there were certain moments where he said, I wouldn't show this horse today because I'm breaking him, and the old types, they would just jump, they knock 5 fences and who cares? But Ascan not. And that's why he said with this horse, he has to keep going. And the same with this Clivia, which is the founder of our Grazie Stamm. He said also was a kind of a speed horse, we would say today. So fast, so smart. And this was the mares where he always thought, this is what I need because the sport will develop. Which was interesting, because I go with Frederik, that he says, okay, the breeders also tell the sport, but it's funny in these moments when you see the founding mares from us was all like horses where Paul had the imagination that at one time, this is the sport, this is where it will develop. So that was actually quite interesting.
So I find this is for me the holy grail to sit here and to talk to him. Ascan was a better horse than Weister.
As from the abilities and the way of jump, yes, that's what he said. I actually Deister, I still remember Ascan. I saw some old videos, but he said it was an unbelievable horse from the jump and from the technique, and was very very ahead of the time.
That's interesting. I don't have him on the radar as such. No. Ascan. Everybody knows Deister, but it's interesting to hear about Ascan.
Okay, Ascan, he only rode for a short period because he sold him just more or less before the Olympics. Yeah. And that's also, it's a funny that the decision, you can imagine there's Olympics in your home in Munich, and then he had to like evaluate. There was somebody who wants to buy the horse, and also with Ascani most likely would have been in the team himself. But he decided at that point, because he wanted to grow his business, say, okay, I drop it and I try the next time.
Okay.
Since we are talking about the development of the horse itself, so how do you see the frame of the horse evolved over the years, and what do the breeding lines make difference in the frame of the horse?
The frame, I think the frame itself, I wouldn't change much. Just the whole that you have more thoroughbred blood in it, and you have some even from Celle Francais, from Normandy horses or something. You have a bit lighter horses, and it's just a bit more modern. But I wouldn't say that the frame really changed too much. Just the bones, the joints, the hooves, everything is lighter. It's not so strong anymore. But the frame itself, I think still, I like personally a horse which is a little bit longer in the back than the very short horse. Very short horse is nice when you start. It's nice when you have like a kid going, because it's always collected. But I think to jump the big classes, it's better to have like a little bit length in the back, because they are stronger, and for them it's easier to reach the second pole.
And you have to think about where, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but where the European horse comes from. Our horse comes from a draft horse that pulls a plow through the field, or a cart with lots of material in it. So they had to be bulky and strong, and they had to have chest to pull something forward. Mm-hmm. Then we started making them lighter and lighter and lighter. So that's why the horse got lighter and the sport got light, because it always followed the horse. So I don't know what the basic breeding horse, the basic sport horse in Brazil used to be, and how that then developed. Because it's where you start, and in Europe we started by making them lighter, easier to ride, easier to move, easier to sit on, because on a wide horse it's difficult to sit on and be agile. So I don't know what the original sport horse in Brazil is. Is it thoroughbred? Is it, I don't know, I'm not going to say something stupid maybe. Is it quarter horse? Where does it stem from?
No, start from thoroughbreds, and for sure importations from Europe is the beginning, but with a small group.
So the original Brazilian sport horse is completely different than the original European sport horse.
Where we started with, where we started in Europe with, this is totally different.
Yeah.
And the way now, they can reach the aim way faster than we in Europe now.
Possible.
With the standard there is right now.
Yep.
And it's important to see the evolution. I think we saw that the sport changed. So when just speaking about lines, is like when we see a Diamant, and then we have Giarado, and now we have Giaron, and now we have Gia Blue, and it's coming more. So what do you think about to use young stallions? Because I think for the new sport, it's very important to have this kind of horses or not. Because here in Brazil, sometimes we think, the people think that it's important to use the top ones in the ranking, and then we forgot to use the young ones. But I think is every time trying to develop. So
a little bit scared of taking the risk of doing something new, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's normal. If you have one or two mares and you think about you want to do best for your mares, and you also want to sell maybe as a foal or whatever, then for sure, if you take the big names, it's easier. We do a mixture for sure. We use also the big names, but we also see then what is this stallion which makes, like Diamant, for example, he gives a lot of scope, easy to ride, and then what kind of mares does he need? So because what we are aiming for is a development, and I'm sometimes these days I'm a bit scared with Ixie and Emperor transfer and what we do, and some do even clones. Then I think, it's good, but where's the development? You want to develop, and if you always use the old lines, there's no development. And especially for us, with such a big corporation, we are always looking for development. So when we use a lot of young stallions, and also because we are so amazed when we see these, you have to think about. I come to Livitz, and then there are like 50, 60 stallions, 3 years old, which are pre-selected by Paul. It's like a kid going in a toy shop and seeing seeing it everything. So, and then you try to find the best ones out of this. And I mean, then you're already so motivated to use them for the breeding. And mostly also it works. And then you start writing them, you write them yourself. And that's why for us, it's easier to use a young stallion. And I think it's very important to use young stallions to move forward. Always depends on the mare, you know, like we said, when you have here more thoroughbred mares, you want to have like a little bit these stronger, maybe a little bit old fashioned types, we call it. What doesn't mean old fashioned doesn't mean bad. Old fashioned just means that you know what we are talking about, because that's the next thing. I also think for breeding it's very important that we don't lose the strength. We don't lose the power. We don't lose the mentality of the horses, which were in front and working on the field and pulling and going and have the strength to make a big jump. I think this is also something we should not lose with all making it prettier, lighter, nicer, and super. But in the end, if there's a 160 oxer and 180 wide, it's good to have some scope, you know, otherwise you feel quite bad in the air.
Yeah, it's interesting. What Florian says, they can use a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old stallion because they have seen him jump 5, 6 times. They've seen him on his good days and they've seen him on the bad days. And it's not about how good a stallion is on his best day, because then a lot of stallions are as good. It's how they are on their worst day, how good are they still at that point. And then some stallions are nowhere and other stallions still keep a certain level. So they really can judge their young stallions really well. So it's interesting to see how they work. From I think the regular breeder's perspective, I think you have to make the difference between what is a young stallion? Is it a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old? I myself find it very difficult to judge any horse around the age of 3, 4, 5. I find it difficult. Is that going to be the next Grand Prix horse? If we're talking young stallion, 6, 7, 8, in a way, in our sport, that's still a young horse. And it only starts at 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then you've got the older stallions, 20 and 20 plus. So I don't think as a breeder that you should feel bad that you don't use the 3, 4, or 5-year-olds, because that's for everybody. Any professional, I think, and maybe they will even confirm, any professional, difficult to say that is going to be the next superstar. A, it's going to be a Grand Prix horse, and B, he's going to give his genetics to his children. That's very difficult to judge. However, if you're talking about a 6, 7, and 8-year-old, I think that's where, as a breeder who is not so close to the sport, that's where you should really look out, because a lot of stallions have already dropped out at that age. At the end of 6, at the end of 7, you need to have already a better horse. And there you can still follow the trend and be ahead of the time and look into the future by using a young stallion. But it doesn't have to be 3, 6, 7, 8 is still a young stallion in a way, and is still working towards development. So and a lot of these questions are also asked in Europe. Are we doing it wrong? No, I believe that a lot of people are looking for information, can't find it, and then go for the confirmed stallion, the stallions that are at the end of their career or even older. But I think if you already look at stallions that are jumping at their age level with success at the age of 7, I think you're still breeding with a young stallion. You're still going in front of the times, and you're still developing. So I think it's an important nuance to make, that you shouldn't feel bad about not breeding with a 3 or a 4-year-old, but going for a 7-year-old that is at his age group.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like to say if it will be a next Grand Prix horse. The way with the management, it's such a big part of it, and you never know. Everything has to work together to be then a Grand Prix horse. But I think for us, especially Paul's place, we have all the information really in a young age. And so we see really the national ability, how the horse is jumping, and we know the lines, and then we see, okay, these things are giving to the next generation. And for us, then it's safer to use a young stallion. Like now we can talk about a young stallion. But if you're here, a breeder in Brazil, for example, then you want to have a really high safety as well if you use a stallion. And then you see the older stallions, you know how they produce, the offsprings you run in the sport. For sure, it's a bit easier then for the marketing as well. And then maybe you use an older stallion. But to go forward and to develop. It's just with the young ones for sure as well. And but the horse that will be later a Grand Prix horse, you never know. That only thing that he's jumping 1.60 m, you don't know if he will give all these abilities to the next generation. Sometimes there is a super horse. It was a perfect match with a special rider competing to the highest level, and the offsprings are getting nothing from him. So this is possible as well. I mean, sometimes you have a stallion. He's not competing the highest level, but he's giving so much good qualities to the offspring, and this is really important as well, to know that, to figure it out. And that's the only thing to talk about, to see, to go around and to get all the informations you can get, and then you have to make a decision.
And that's where we said earlier, the breeding decides on the sport. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be in front of if your breeding wants to be in front of the sport, you also have to follow the sport. Mm-hmm. That's what I think what Bernhard was saying.
My next question is for Florian, but you all can pitch in. So I want to know, how do you guys choose the stallions for the next seasons?
Actually, we choose it by that we see our stallions from the older ones. We see the first offsprings, so we see what if the stallion gives that to the offsprings, what we hoped or what we thought before. So that's how we select the mares for the older stallions, also how they are doing in the sport and everything. And the younger stallions, in the end, we select also by what we saw. And if we get back to what Frederik just said, for the normal breeder, that's, I think, a good advice that he has. For us, it's totally different, because I truly believe that the horse, the stallion gives to his offsprings this what is there by nature. So we see them when they're 18 months old, 19 months old, they start loose jumping. And then we see the first jump of the horse. Like, they get trained a little bit, that they get used to it. And then we see the first jump of the horse. He comes around the corner, he sees a jump, and he makes it. And I'm 100% convinced that the horse, what he's giving in his genetics is this jump. And it's the same, like, then you put a rider on. The rider is like, you just put a line on the long side, and they come around the corner, they do the first cross, and they make a jump. And this is the jump. That's a nature jump. That's what he will give. He will not give to the offsprings the jumping the triple with Marcus Ehning, which helps him out. And that's how we select the young stallions. And also in the same moment, you will never have a perfect horse. I think what's also very important in breeding, which is a hard thing, to be truthful to yourself. So there's never the perfect stallion, there's never the perfect mare. But as much as you know the weakness of your stallion and the weakness of your mare, I think it's a good match. And that's why it's very important to tell our breeding advisors that what we really think about the horse, what the horse can do, what he did well when he was young, what he didn't do so good when he was older, which doesn't mean it's a bad horse. It's not. And if you always tell the people, yeah, this is the best stallion, yeah, for sure. But there are always things that he doesn't give to his offsprings or that he doesn't have himself. So if you're more truthful there, I think then you will be very successful. That's also what made Paul great, because he always makes notes for every horse, for every mare. You can see in every mare, you can see the offsprings. And then you have all these notes, and the notes are mostly truthful, you know. Sometimes you're a little bit too optimistic, but in general, you write it down and you know exactly what you have. And then you see, okay, this horse is jumping with a good technique, has a very good leg, a super quality, good type, but maybe doesn't have the last scope and is a bit short and maybe is a little downhill or whatever. So you try to choose a stallion where you think he doesn't have that weakness or he doesn't give this weakness to his offsprings. And I think that's how we choose the stallion. And we also try to tell our people to go out there when you want to advise a young stallion, tell them, you know, don't be scared that you say something bad, because there's always, about every stallion, there's something which is maybe not perfect. This is not what you point out, because you always point out good things. But this is, I think, the most important thing if you decide which stallion to take.
Yesterday, you told me that you like to ride the young ones.
Yes.
How is this? Can you comment a little bit what you feel and
I think when you ride these really young horses, you feel a natural balance. you feel the mentality a little bit. You feel if they have blood, if they want to go, if they are difficult in certain situations, if they're losing their mind, then you always, like when you start with a young stallion, you have the relatives, the mother, the grandmother you have in mind, and you think if this is a development and if this is what you hope to have from this family line will go there. And when you ride it and when you take them to another place and you jump them a foreign course, you see a lot of the natural ability and the natural character of the horse, And that's why I really like to ride them myself a little bit and jump them sometimes just to get an idea, like I said, because all to the end, it's the mentality of the horse, They're like, we're soccer players. There are different types. But in the end, they need mentality and they have to go. And if they do this, then you can work with them.
It's also interesting what Florian says. There is no perfect mare, there is no perfect fan, there is also no perfect horse if you think about it. Checker won in Paris. In Tokyo, it was Explosion. Then we go to Rio, there was Big Star. It was Nino in London. Then it was Hickstead in Beijing. If you think about, then it was Balube in Athens. Yeah. If you think about only those horses that reached the pinnacle of the sport, they are completely different. Yeah. So you're not looking for the confirmation or the perfect type. You are looking, what Florian already said, you're looking for that essential mentality, the basic intelligence, or not basic intelligence, the intelligence, the mindset, the ability to do something. And most of all, like you look for in people. If you want to hire somebody for your company or you want somebody to come and paint your wall, they can all paint. But how fast do they do it? When you make an appointment, do they show up at 10 o'clock or do they come 2 hours too late? That's what you're looking for. Right? That mentality in people is the same what you're looking for in the horse. And your painter can be 10 different people, but you want them to be there at 10 o'clock and paint it in the correct way.
But this is really interesting if you see the horses now with the Olympic winners, just like, Checker and Christian Kuckuck maybe was a bit shorter connection, but all the others like Balube, Hickstead, a really long connection with the rider. So it's not like that they just changed a year or a couple of months before. Really a long connection. Yeah. And this is just like that. Then there's a feeling. What needs the horse? They know each other really well. And then it's possible to compete that level because of the mind and this connection to make it to a perfect match. Huh?
Yeah. So my next question obviously is about the mares. What makes a mare valuable and what characteristics should we look into it to find one? Because we see that Brazil began importing the mares just recently. It's not as easy as having a semen from a famous horse or anything like that. So, but those mares come from the same lines. And what should we look into now?
Fertility. If you buy a brood mare, you want fertile mares. That always helps. No, that's just a joke, but
the joke is right.
It's actually quite right. I know.
And for sure, the best ones have a lot of fertility. Is why they become in the top of their ranking, because they produce a lot, and so they have more chance. This is important.
Think about it. It's also Darwin and natural evolution. If you cannot breed, you go extinct. That's true.
But how do we choose the good ones? Like what mare, what line? Because I have a mare. I have always to talk about my mare. She's so special. She's not the best in the world, but for me she is. And I know she won't produce like a GP jumper, but for me it's okay, no problem.
You don't know. But every line starts somewhere.
But she doesn't jump. What should I'll show you her. I'll show you a picture. But for the breeders, when I go to Europe, like in June maybe, I don't know, we'll look into some horses and I want to buy a mare. What should I look at? What should I look for?
I think like everybody does, the constitution, the type, the jump. You have to judge the jump for yourself a little bit, how it goes, and then I think from the jumper it's also very, very important to go back in the family and see, did this family produce a lot of successful horses? I mean, it's always for sure the horses which for example, bred in our stud have more chances to reach to the top than maybe from a local breeder who sells the horse to a nice amateur. They have no chance to make it to the sport. But if you get a little bit into it, I think that a successful family line is very important. And if you have this, a good constitution, which means also the horse should be healthy, that's also an important thing, and good jump, and the family, I think that's what you should look for and try to find.
Like Florian, in the beginning of this podcast, Florian spoke about Ascam, and that Paul Schockemöhle wanted to buy the full system because of that mentality. And a lot of successful breeders in Europe do not necessarily speak about a mare that has jumped Grand Prix, but a mare that has jumped a lot of clear rounds. For example, Belgian breeding, BWP, is based on horses that jumped in the Z level. A Z level in Belgium back in the day, that was meter 35. There's a lot of mares that jumped a lot of clear rounds at meter 35 that are now the mothers of Grand Prix horses. And you could say, how relevant is meter 35? It's not so much the height, but it is the mentality and it is the results. You know, if they jump a lot of clear rounds at their level, maybe they lack a rider that can go higher, or they lack scope. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's easier to add a bit of scope to your breeding than to add carefulness and mentality. So, and especially today, if it was 20 years ago, it was much more difficult. But today, there's so many websites like Mundo where you can go through all the results of national and international classes. And and we talk about black type, and black type gives a lot of people a lot of confidence, and not really a guarantee, but it gives you a look into the future, or at least in the past, how successful a dam line has been. But you can really, even if it's at meter 40 or meter 35, if the offspring have jumped a lot of clear rounds, there is a lot of potential or a lot of chance that your mare, who is a sibling maybe, could produce the same, because that mentality, that runs in the family. I think that's research is key. If you want to invest, if you want to spend money, you can only spend it once, that money. You have to do your research. So it's not about necessarily the Grand Prix horse that every time jumped with 8 penalties, or maybe the meter 40, meter 35 horse that was ultra competitive. Usha van der Rosacker was not a Grand Prix horse. She was just a very, very careful horse below that level.
So now we have to change the Mundo. Huh? We have to make a ranking with mothers that produce clear rounds. But it's nice.
But today on Mundo you can find that.
Yeah.
On Mundo you can find all those statistics at which level they jumped, which percentages of clear rounds, and then you can also go and look at the rider. Did the rider ever ride at a higher level? Now I'm going too deep into it, but I think mentality is very difficult to judge. Again, if Florian or Bernhard want to hire somebody, they can come and sit at the table and they can deliver the perfect pitch for them to hire that person. But it's only when they start working with them that they know, yes, it's right or it's wrong. Now with all the data, you can have a little bit of insight into it, I think.
So my next question is for Fernando, actually. Eu vou fazer em português, tá?
So we can have a drink.
Sorry guys, Portuguese time. Como você vê a criação no Brasil hoje? Você acha que a gente tem evoluído com todas essas novas tecnologias, com toda essa importação desses cavalos que está mudando todo o nosso cenário agora?
Com certeza, eu acho que a gente está num cenário muito otimista e evoluindo a cada ano. Se a gente for parar para pensar, a nossa criação é relativamente muito nova, comparando a criação europeia, mas muito nova. Não sei exatamente, mas a nossa associação é uma associação de talvez 50 anos, algo em torno disso. E a gente está falando de associações que são centenárias. Então, eles estão anos-luz ainda na nossa frente. Mas é claro que com biotecnologia, com importação de material genético e até mesmo importação de animais, nós conseguimos nos comparar a eles rapidamente, porque a gente trouxe isso. Então, a gente tem que sempre entender que a importação e a biotecnologia ela é importantíssima para o avanço genético. É por isso que existe isso. Isso acontece em todas as espécies. A gente nunca pode fechar os olhos, apesar de saber que temos muita qualidade. Não dá para a gente não citar nomes como Primavera Montana, como Aspen, como Miss Blue, né, como Calais, como vários cavalos que chegaram no alto nível, Diamantina, enfim, a gente tem muita criação hoje, muito boa. Mas a grande maioria desses animais vieram desse material biológico importado. Né? Por quê? Porque eles estão há muito mais tempo fazendo isso. Né? E se nós queremos continuar evoluindo, e nós percebemos hoje o quanto a evolução é constante pela mudança da criação e mudança do esporte, a gente tem que continuar fazendo isso. Isso é sempre importante para a gente. Isso acontece em todas as espécies. Né? Se a gente for ver um criador de cães, né, de Golden Retriever, ele também sonha em buscar um cão no país de origem. Por quê? Porque lá é selecionado há muito mais tempo. Se a gente for ver um criador de suínos, até hoje a gente tem, talvez hoje, uma das maiores produções de suínos do mundo, mas a gente ainda consegue e precisa importar material genético de países de origem para sempre alavancar a nossa criação. Né? Então, até passando um pouco do nosso leilão, a ideia era justamente essa, né? Trazer material genético de alta qualidade e bons indivíduos. Né? Então, é uma evolução constante, a genética não para, ela não é estática. E se o esporte, se as coisas vão mudando, a gente tem que ir sempre caminhando junto, não adianta também a gente se fechar, né? Até mesmo porque cavalo, ele precisa ter variabilidade genética, né? E a gente não pode restringir para acabar tendo consanguinidade. Então, tudo é muito importante que a gente sempre esteja pensando em evolução. É claro que nós temos grande possibilidade de produzir muitos bons animais aqui com BHs, né? É claro. Mas isso veio, consequentemente, também da Europa, então a gente tem que continuar e sempre produzir e também exportar, porque hoje a gente também tem muitas coisas boas. Né? A gente já tem casos de sucesso aí, exportados para vários países do mundo, né, de animais que nós produzimos. Então nós temos sim qualidade, mas não podemos nunca parar e se fechar. Eu acho que ninguém pode parar e fechar. E isso que é muito interessante do nosso cavalo de hipismo, né, que são raças abertas entre si, onde o mundo inteiro faz esse intercâmbio de genética. O cara da Holsteiner, ele compra no Zangerscheid, o cara do Zangerscheid compra no Oldenburgo e assim por diante. E nós estamos um pouquinho mais afastados, então parece que essa importação é algo muito grandioso, mas não, é algo normal que o mundo inteiro do hipismo faz e a gente consegue estar sempre evoluindo. Essa é a ideia. Understand?
Yes.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yes.
For me, it's the evening. Now we could follow everything.
Just one day. Yeah.
I'm going to answer in English because if I do it in Portuguese, you understand.
Thanks for that.
But if you look at what Belgian breeding, 40 years ago we were nowhere. We had no sport horse breeding. We didn't do anything. We had only heavy draft horses, and then we also started importing from Holland and from Germany and from all the different stud books, and we also imported wrong stallions and wrong mares. But we only became successful today because 40 years ago we had people from our country, from Belgium, small country, that went to look everywhere. We had some that went to France and sell Français, some went to Hanover, some went to Holstein, some went to Holland, and we imported a lot of genetic material. So we didn't just look at ourselves and continued playing with our own gene pool. We imported a lot and saw what matched. I think that's really, really crucial to keep a very open look and to be critical about what you have. Also be proud about what you have, because like you say, you guys breed 800 horses a year, the stud book?
Yeah, around.
How many do you breed at Schockemöhle's?
Little more than 1,000.
Little more than 1,000. In Belgium, 6,000 foals are born every year. In Holland, it's even more. The whole of Germany, and we're talking about more than 20,000, I think. So if you think about the relative results of horses born and the success that you're putting out at the moment, Diamantina, Miss Blue, Primavera, the success rate is not that bad. Only the volume is low because you have a low volume. Yeah. But the idea of keeping an eye open and importing the right genetics is spot on.
E nessa questão é muito legal a gente pensar que hoje a gente pode ter essa parceria também, né, no qual eles estão juntos dentro de um projeto. Né? Com certeza, a ideia de trazer esses animais, a seleção foi monstruosa. Né? Não era algo que, não queremos um animal, vamos mandar para o Brasil. A gente está com os caras aqui, a gente está com esses caras querendo desenvolver um projeto aqui dentro, né? Então realmente vieram animais de muita qualidade, né? Para todo mundo mostrar que a gente juntos podemos produzir melhores cavalos, né? E não simplesmente achar que isso é ruim, né? E sim dizer, olha, vamos lá, vamos fazer mais. É um momento ideal para a gente startar um projeto desse, né, e conseguir continuar evoluindo e tendo esse intercâmbio que, mesmo dentro da Europa, ele existe. Então, a gente está incluindo o Brasil nisso, que eu acho que é muito importante.
So, you guys talked a little bit about the market. So, is the market in Europe very different from what we have here in Brazil? What do we have the same, like, kind of?
The auction market goes much quicker.
We noticed.
That's something that we have to improve.
Yeah, we noticed that.
Yeah. Auctions in Europe are a sprint, and here it is a marathon. It's a huge difference.
But did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, I have to say also the other auctioneer was of great help. It's but okay, that's only a small piece of the market, of course.
And do you all think that Brazilians are looking for like the same type of horse that the people in Europe are, or no?
I think in general, yes. Looking for the same type, but it really depends always on the mare, and also depends a little bit which kind of horse do you like. You know, it's like, for example, even in our stable, we have 5-6 important people, and everybody has the type of horse that he really likes, and that's why also the demand on these auctions will be different. Anywhere where we make an auction, we try to bring horses different types, also with different ideas, because it's a difference if I want to ride a horse, if I buy a horse for myself, or if I buy a horse for my children or for my wife. So this idea, okay, for sure, everybody wants to breed the superstar, but in general, everybody has the intention which horse he likes, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Everybody wants to breed a horse that they can watch on Sunday on television. That's everybody's ambition. But in terms of type, I don't think that there is, like we said already earlier, there is not a type. The only right type is the type that doesn't suffer from its conformation. Feet that are incorrect, problems in the joints, and not so much inside the joints, but how a joint is positioned. The easier a body can move, the easier it is to train, and the less wear it has. So the longer the body can function. I think that's the best type. All the rest, Florian likes a long back, but if it's like he says, if it's his young son riding, you want a shorter back because it's a little bit easier. He can sit a little bit lighter. So there's a huge difference there in what is your ambition. I think that's also an important goal for every breeder. What is your ambition? If you want to walk the line and aim only at that meter 60 5-star Grand Prix horse, then you're going to be disappointed a lot of times. If you're aiming for the meter 40 horse, then you have got a good chance of reaching that, because and also you're going to be surprised a few times because you're going to go over that. So I think setting a goal for your breeding is very important. Who is going to be your client? Is it for yourself? Are you breeding for yourself? You just want to keep riding? Are you selling? Are you hoping to produce? It is important.
And if you're the breeder, then you have to know how long I can go this way. Most of the breeders, my friend said, well, there's no chance to make this long way. At our company, for sure, the horses, they will get a chance and they will get a good management, a good ride, a good experience.
Hopefully.
So we're working on it. But the chance then to get a horse in the higher sport, for the horse, it's easier than just coming from the breeder. You breed the horse. Maybe you need to sail as a foal or whatever. You have no chance to go up and to ride him. So then you need to think a little bit what kind of horse for me at the moment is right, which I can make a position on the market. And then maybe if you want to sail a foal, then it is more focus on the breeding line and the family, and that you don't need to explain the young stallion now, who is it and how many rounds he made. So then you take a stallion who's in the TV and you don't need to explain. So then it's easier to stay as a foal. And if you have the chance to go this longer way and to manage the horse, if the client is later coming, most of the clients then they want to ride the horse, it fits to them, and then the paper doesn't matter so much anymore.
And if we're talking about sport, don't take me on the numbers, but 90% of the riders want to ride between 1 meter 25 and 1 meter 35, maybe 1 meter 40. I think that's 90% of the clientele of the people that are riding. And then there's a small group below it, and there's an even smaller group just above it at the meter 50, meter 55, meter 60 level. It's also something that as a breeder you need to be aware of. So to turn it around, I think even Paul Schockemöhle will have bought mares that he had a vision and an ambition with, and that didn't succeed. So you also need to be aware of that, and it's not always a success as well. It's trial and error. So going to Europe and saying that the market there is different, we make the same mistakes. We just have a lot more horses, so you don't see the mistakes as often. I think that's
and we don't talk about it.
Yeah, they don't come in a podcast.
Okay, no problem then. So we make it final. I wanted to know a little story of each one, a little memory that you have along the breeding with Paul Schockemöhle.
You can tell about the auction.
Fernando asked me to ask you this. He knows something.
You set me up for the question.
He knows something.
Yeah.
So he told me to ask this.
Okay, I'll let them start first.
Okay.
The breeding with Paul Schockemöhle.
They can get fired. I cannot.
The experience we had with the breeding of Paul Schockemöhle. If I wasn't working for Paul, it was really this this type of horse what he's breeding. This really sportive horse. But we talked a lot about this the mind, but also the body for it that fits to the sport. They're fast from the ground. This technique, like really there is right now with the stallions like Chacun or Diablo. This was really impressive. And now, if you're really closer to it, it's just the background, what you know, how safe the foundation is of the lines, and this knowledge what is around. For sure about the horses, but also about the management, the breeding part in Levitz. If you can alive it, it's amazing.
It's hard to say because there are so many things that I experienced and I got to know while we are working together, and I see the cooperation really like up to the very end and see how it started. But for me, the most important thing, what I learned is from him that he always tries to see the positive thing in the horse. When he sees the horse, he will tell you what he likes on the horse, and never go from the bad side. He always sees the good sides, and this keeps you positive, and that gives you motivation to go on. So he's always seeing what he likes on the horse, what the horse could do, how you have to set it up with the mares and whatever. I think that's the most important thing, and that's why everybody keeps moving this direction. If you imagine how big this cooperation is, you have to also motivate the people. And there are days where you think, oh, it's so much, and it's miserable weather, and there are a lot of things, because there are also always things go wrong. But this mentality to see the positive things, to move forward, I think that's the most important thing, and that you have horses that catch your heart. You think about it and you say this and this and this, but in the end, you see a positive thing and you see a horse and you say, that's why I'm doing that. It's a special horse, and it's hard to tell. It's not because it's super conformation or this is super. It's just the horse that gives you a special feeling, and that's, I think, what makes him strong and makes him be that great in this cooperation.
It seems to me that you enjoy working there.
I enjoy working there. I do, yes. I mean, absolutely. It's in the end, it's a dream to do all this work. It's a lot of work, and sometimes you have to try to step back a little bit. Otherwise, you're getting like yeah. It's in the end, it's what I love. It's what I wanted to do in the end. Even if I started to study when I was young, but it's that what I want to move forward, and this vision is what I really like.
Você também, Fernando?
Eu não tenho tantas experiências que nem ele, né? É lógico que para mim, quando eu tô com ele, é sempre um prazer, é sempre uma aula. É a primeira vez que a gente viu os cavalos saltando em liberdade e o show que ele dá com pequenos detalhes é impressionante. Os jantares no restaurante que não é dele, mas a foto é dele. E as conversas, aí você mostra um vídeo e ele te indica um garanhão e o porquê, enfim. Essas são as boas recordações que eu tenho e sempre um prazer estar junto e entendendo de um cara tão experiente. Claro que não é uma vida que nem a dele, são pequenos momentos, mas que sempre são marcados.
I have two experiences with Paul. In 2008, the organization of Jumping Mechelen, a show in Belgium, a World Cup show, told me that they were going to have one auction for the last time. They've been having it for years, and they were going to do it for the last time. It was the last chance for the auction, and they wanted a new auctioneer. I had never done an auction before, so if you want to learn about an auction, where do you go? You go to the PSI auction. So with my father, I drove to the PSI auction. It was 2008. I bought a ticket. I went to sit in the grandstands, and I watched everything. I took notes. It was Paul Schockemöhle, it was Ulrich Kassemann, and it was Uwe Heckmann in the middle. The auctioneer of the moment at that point. He was the god. He was the Cristiano Ronaldo of auctioneering. He really was. And I sat there and I noted everything down, and we drove back home, and I tried to speak as quick as possible, and I tried to make the jokes, and I did it in different languages. And then in 2008, in December, I did the auction, and the auction was a disaster. It was a drama, and I thought, okay, this is where my auctioneering ends. Also, the auction ended; it stopped, so it was over and out. And then, for some reason, somebody picked up on it, and I continued doing auctions. And then a few years ago, I got invited to come to the PSI auction, and it was the day before. And Paul and Florian came up to me and they said, "Frederik, our auctioneer isn't feeling super. It could be that you have to come in and step in." Now, at that point, that still is, PSI auction is on the bucket list of every auctioneer. It's the longest running, maybe not the longest running, but the longest running prestigious auction there is. It's the most international. It's something special. PSI is special. If you haven't been there, it is special. So all of a sudden somebody tells me that there is a chance that I could do the auction where it started and the auction that I've always dreamed of doing. I said, jeez, that's special. So it was on the gala evening. They asked me, we drove back to the hotel the whole night. I studied every pedigree. I studied every horse. I knew everything about the horse. So we go on the day itself, we go to the auction and I sit there. And I sit at the table and the auction starts and I'm thinking, if this guy gets sick and he falls over, whatever happens, I'm ready. I mean, it's for me, it is Champions League final. I'm on the bench. I've got my shirt on. I've got my football shoes on. I am warmed up. If anybody gets injured, I'm on the pitch and I'm going to score those goals. Don't doubt. But it didn't happen. So I stayed on the bench and I went home. But those were two really, really special moments. Paul Schockemöhle also, I think he only said 8 words to me. Like, "Frederik, the auctioneer is sick. If it doesn't go well, you take over." And off he went. That was it. But it was, It's
No chance to give an answer.
No. I couldn't even say yes or no. It was just a task that I had to do. But that was those two things that back in 2008, and I think this one was in 2018, 10 years later. I thought, those are some moments I will always remember. Yeah.
So thank you guys for being here today with us. Thank you for the awesome auction we had yesterday. Without you guys, you wouldn't have been happening. Without Fernando, I can say, Fernando arrasou ontem. Ontem não, né? Foi trabalho árduo de muito tempo.
Muito tempo.
Então, eu queria agradecer, em nome da comunidade hípica, pelo serviço que vocês estão fazendo no nosso esporte. Então, I would like to thank you all for the service you are doing for our breeding, our sports horses in Brazil.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.